How you doing? We had talked about Dutchtown, and that covers, the western part of town, but we haven't really seen the early means pre-railroad, before the railroad showed up. The early time of Greensburg up on Main Street and the eastern side of town. And I might want to call it the Irish side of town, but actually I don't, because if it was Irish at all, it was Scotch-Irish. And they were the people that were imported into Ireland by the English king. Kind of that difference between the north and the south. They were imported into the north of Ireland and creating a lot of bad feelings, some of which still exist today. And you can imagine why they wanted to get out of Ireland, because it wasn't a place that they were often comfortable. A lot of them came to America, the Scotch-Irish, and a lot of them settled in Greensburg. And we might speak about the ways that the town was more or less separated. And I don't want to make any kind of statements that it was separated or segregated by rule or law or anything like that. It wasn't. It was just that people sometimes wanted to be together. People who were more or less the same kind of people felt more comfortable being together. Over in Dutchtown, you had the people who were from Germany and places like Scandinavia and Switzerland, places that had a kind of a Germanic background. And it highlights differences because they spoke German. The people on the other side of town spoke English. The guys over in Dutchtown were politically, they were mostly Democratic Republicans, which were Democrats then. And in the area of religion, they were mostly Lutherans over on the Dutchtown side, and up on Main Street and the what we can call the Irish side, but it wasn't all Irish. They were mostly Presbyterians. And this kind of talk of showing the differences is kind of like doing the broad brushwork, because there were a lot of things that didn't fit into these specific categories. But we can kind of do the broad brushwork and then kind of put in the the details, because there were a lot of details, things that didn't show up in the overall pictures. But I just wanted to do this kind of introduction to say that there were differences in the old town. I'm one of those people that believe that those who are ignorant of the past are destined to repeat it. And that's one of the reasons I do this stuff, because I think it's important to learn something from what happened, because these people who lived before us learned a lot of lessons, and they're lessons that's worth passing on. When I see something like the guy named Trump trying to be a president of this country, I can't help thinking that the people that are supporting him wouldn't be doing that if they had spent some time studying the history of Germany in the 30s. There is this idea of the useful past. The past is useful to teach us things, so that we don't just go through life doing the same things over and over. At the risk of, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm simply going to move on, because I don't want to make, I don't do this stuff to make bad feelings. I just like to try to pass along information. And I think history is important to learn what life's about. And also, a person with a philosophical bent would tell me, yeah, you're right, and so is philosophy. And the religious people are going to be in there too, and like, yeah, well, okay, so what? I'm not always totally tolerant of everybody. I'm also not an atheist. I'm a pantheist. But I say the things I think should be said. And I think it's time now to take a look at some pictures, if we can do that. And So we're starting to look at the other side of town. We start at the intersection. You might recognize this is where Pittsburgh Street is looking west, and Main Street is going up north. This is present tense. This is one of my attempts to show what it might have looked like a long time ago. There was then a little diamond in the middle of the town. This was there was a hotel and an inn. Simon Drum bought that place from Christopher Truby for about a couple pounds, and he turned it into a really worthwhile piece of real estate. Over here was the marketplace, the market house, and the courthouse over here. That's just the black and white version, and there's a bit of text there if you want to push your pause button and read some of it. I put this in here to introduce the fact that when we're talking about people making things in the old town, what we're really talking about is a cottage industry. People doing things very much at home, in the house where they lived, or in a shanty out back, or a workshop beside the house. But they weren't going to factories. They didn't go to a factory. Where they worked was very much where they lived, and that's the way things were in Greensburg. They brought those traditions with them from Europe. This looks north. We're looking here up Main Street north, and the street going across is Otterman Street. And we first of all see this building on the corner, which was an inn. Simon Singer in 1817 was moving in there to be the innkeep, and he presided at the whatever happened there. Singer was actually a blacksmith in his early days, came from a family of blacksmiths, and after he worked at that house on the corner there, he moved on to what had been the Drums Inn down at the corner of Pittsburgh Street and Main Street, and actually had dramatic productions there, third going on there, in the inn, place where he worked. And we're looking again at North Main Street. We see up here Alexander McKinney made shoes here. Right above here at number 3, there were several tinsmiths. And the tinsmiths worked with not just tin but copper. And they made the stills. I mean, there's no doubt about it, the stills were very important in the early town, because whiskey was not just something that people drank, but it was a medium of exchange. Right after the Revolution, when money was nearly valueless, the one thing that you could use to barter or deal with was whiskey. And these guys both worked there, making the stills that made the whiskey. And right above where the stills were made here at 3, was number 4, John Wells. Not a popular guy in the very early town. He had been a excise. He was the guy that collected the excise tax. And he and his father, Benjamin Wells, were the guys who were some of the chief mean guys at the time of the whiskey rebellion. But later on, he became a burgess of the town and sort of, I guess, became a bit less, whatever. And down here on the corner, this was a store, Carr's first, and then Brady's. Up here was a hatter, Isaac, probably John. Up here in number 6 was one of the town's first carpenters, a guy named Cooper. Up at 5, you can see the place where the two brothers, one of them was a wheelwright, the other ones made clocks. And we still have one of the clocks